everybody, Austin from the songwriting team at Make Pop Music here, and today we have a really cool tutorial. We're going to kind of look at how I go in and how I stack my samples to create completely new samples. We're going to kind of talk about how I build up a sample using 4 or 5 different samples to kind of be one massive sound that you can use in your production. To do that today, we're going to use a bunch of the woodshed audio samples that Make Pop Music sells. So if you guys like the samples to start out with, definitely go check them out. They're great for stacking, layering, and then doing further processing on. Our goal at Make Pop Music and Woodshed Audio is to basically bring you samples that you can kind of tweak your own way and you can make them fit your mix. We don't want to deliver something that's so, mix ready and so package sealed that it's really, really hard to fit actually in your mixes, I'd rather the drums sound good by themselves but sound great in a mix than sound amazing by themselves and not fit in a mix. So definitely go check out the samples and you guys can use a bunch of the tips that I'm going to go over today. We're just going to kind of go through how I layer samples and make these huge, huge samples in my mixes. They help a lot. It makes mixing them really simple and minimal. It makes you not have to add a ton of stuff once you're actually doing your track. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. But before we do that, definitely subscribe to our channel because we are bringing you bi-weekly content. We've got videos coming Tuesday and Thursday right now. Tuesday, production tips from me, and Thursday, business tips from Daniel. So we love making content for you guys, so please show us love and support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. It means the world to us. But in the comments below, leave some stuff that you want to see next week or maybe the week after. Leave some comments, leave some tips, leave some tricks. We really want to grow the community. And speaking of community, we have the Make Pop Music group on Facebook. So if you're not a part of that, check the links in the description and you can go ahead and go to the Make Pop Music group and join today. Just answer the couple questions that it asks when you join the group and we'll add you in and you can join our community. But as for now, let's jump into Cubase and see what I'm doing for the samples. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what the sample sounds straight out of our box. And they're good samples. Like I said, I've used them straight out of the box so many times in the mixes, but sometimes it's just not enough. And actually, by the end, I'll kind of explain something that I really like to do by using the sample out of the box and then using the stack sample that I create. So let's go ahead and take a listen. This is the original kick that we're going to be processing. So not a bad kick. It's got some thump, got some body. And then let's go ahead and take a listen to the ethnic kind of snare. Cool. So that's what we're going to take a look at today and what we're going to try to break down how we're doing it. And then let's go ahead and take a listen to the final kick and snare. For comparison. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at this kick, what we're doing. We've got the first kick that we're going to use is this essential kick right here. I've gone ahead and I've muted all the inserts, I've muted all the EQ, I've muted the bus send. First of all, the first thing I want to say is it's easiest if you do this either in a separate project or later on in your project. Don't try to do this in the project because it's going to take up a lot of CPU doing all of these little inserts. So I've routed these all to one bus. They're going to go straight to this drums bus. As you can see, all 5 samples are ending up in the same place. That way I can do individual processing on these as well as like a bus process at the end. So let's go ahead and take a look. So this first sample we have. Cool. So that's the first we have. It's just a little kick, nothing super special. I don't really like the high end in that. So what I'm going to do for this stack is I want it to be fat. I want to have some clicky high end. I want it to cut through a mix. So I definitely want more low end. I want more of like the 50 hertz. So I'm going to add some max bass because I want more of that subby thump instead of that like 100 to 200, almost like basketball thump. So let's go ahead and take a listen now. So as you can see and hear, right around that 60 to 100 region is really getting blasted. And then next, like I said, we don't want that high end, so we're going to use an EQ. I'm using Pro Q as always, but you can use any EQ you want. I use this EQ later on in the tutorial, but I'm cutting out all of that high end, so let's go ahead and take a listen now. And then since I've cut out all that high end, I felt like it needed a little more attack, so I just added this envelope shaper, added some attack, and the main thing I did was cut that release down because it was kind of a longer trailing sub that like you'd hear in EDM a lot, but this is going to be for pop music for me, so I definitely wanted it like a shorter, snappier kick drum. So let's go ahead and take a listen now. So that just kind of tightens it up a little bit. So now we've got the low end for our kick sample. So this is going to be, this essential kick is going to be our main low end. And let's take a listen at what we're doing for sample 2. So I really like the high end in this sample too. So what we're going to do is we're going to take FabFilter and we're going to basically do the opposite of what we did on the last thing. We're going to cut out all that low end because all we want is this high end. And I'm going to scoop some of those mids out because they were just kind of clashing with that low end and it was an annoying frequency. So let's take a listen now. Cool. So as you see, let's go ahead and listen mixed. It's starting to take a little bit of a shape. We're going to throw on an envelope shaper and kind of give it a little bit more attack on this high end because I really want that click to pop through a mix. That's really going to help it sit really nice in a mix. So let's take a listen now. Cool. And then we have the scoop kick, and I actually, let's see. This is what it was, but I've gone ahead and copped some of it off. So I really didn't necessarily want it at the start. So I trimmed it back a little bit and then kind of took away the attack. So now we've got, so I really just want kind of like that low end, mid end kind of coming in. And so I've chopped out that low end. That way the high end can really shine. So let's take a listen. Cool. And then I've done on a G channel with just like a typical drum room. I'm basically going to use this as kind of like almost like a room kick, but it doesn't really have a reverb on it. It just kind of is compressing the crap out of it. And then this is where this one shines, is I put on this bit crusher. And it adds a nice little crispy top end that's a little different from this one. It kind of gives it a little bit more body in that top. Cool. So this sample alone would work. Personally, I felt like it needed a little bit more in the mid section. So let's take a listen. We use this for the mid. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't have a lot of mid in it right now. So let's take a look at what I did to kind of fix that. Cut out all the lows, cut out most of the highs. And then I actually limited it to kind of give it a little bit more of like a, not so much of a transient, but more of like a squared off. You could use a clipper for this too, that would really work, but I didn't have one for this mix, so I just used a limiter. And then this is where this one really shines in, is I saturated the crap out of it. So let's take a listen. So that's adding a really, really cool crushed kind of mid-range that's going to really help that kick sit. And then, of course, envelope shaper added a lot of attack actually and chopped this off. So let's take a listen. And let's hear it with all these mixed. Cool. And one of the cool things about using all these different elements is, say, you know, you don't like this much clickiness, or you don't want this much mid, or the low end, you want it to be a different kind of low end. You can switch each of these out. So like one sample is super, super customizable. It's basically like having a fader on 5 different parts of the mix. So I really like using these to kind of customize my mix. And then last, we're just going to use this little hi-hat. Let's take a listen. As you can tell, it's just a really typical hi-hat. The bit crusher really came in key on this, so let's take a listen when I crush it. I'm dividing it into 6 and then taking it down to 12 and then kind of blending that in. Let's see. And that was adding a lot of like almost woody low end to it, so I went ahead and filtered that out. Yeah, let's see. And this is it. And let's hear it all together. Make sure I didn't have any other EQs on here. Cool, we have some on the snare, so I just wanted to check. And then this is key, is now this is one cohesive sample, so I wanted to process this as one cohesive sample, so I'm gonna send it to a compressor. I like using Pro C a lot for electronic stuff. I don't know, for some reason it just sounds a little bit better than like the 76 or whatever for processing these super electronic samples. So let's take a listen. As you can see, we're, you know, doing a bit of gain reduction. We're getting a good punch in there. Without. With. Just kind of gives it a little bit more body. And then, I don't know if a ton of people do this. You might, you know, crucify me for this. But I like using a limiter on drums because sometimes I feel like drums are a little bit too transient when we're making them. So I like to take away that transient and kind of boost up whatever's going to be like that normal release. So let's take a look at what I did. I guess medium quick attack, medium release, and I'm boosting the shit out of it. So like, let's take a listen to this. And to me, that sounds cool. And like, if you wanted, like, it's a little much high end, let's take that down. Let's take this hi-hat down. And like I said, it's completely customizable now. So there's your kick, each individually processed and then bus processed. Okay, so let's take a look at the snare now. So now we've got this main ethnic hit. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to filter out some of that low because I'm going to have more of an electronic snare going to be like as the main snare. This is really just for tonal purposes. You hear it a lot in a lot of modern pop, a lot of electronic pop. That tonal snare is kind of really in right now. So we're going to filter out the low, filter out some of these annoying mid frequencies, and then filter this out because it was a real like, I don't know, to me like that 2K sometimes just makes a snare sound really thin and papery. And then we're going to boost the highs a little bit. So let's take a listen. And then we're going to have just a little bit of reverb. Looks like 5%. Probably won't even hear this when I play it back. Barely there, but every little thing counts. Let's take a listen at the second snare. So definitely a smaller sounding snare, so let's take a look at what we're doing for this. First off, I went ahead and low cut, high cut. This one's going to be our main body and our main punch. So filtering out the low end just so it's not getting muddy. And I'm adding this like 200 region right here because there's a good pop in the snare right there. Let's take a listen. Cutting this out. Don't want that. And then cutting this out. And then we're going to, again, give it a lot of attack on this. This one's going to be a ton. And shortening up that release so it's a lot snappier. So let's take a listen before and after. Yeah, that's perfect. I just want that transient snap. So that was sick. And then I actually went ahead and saturated this just a little bit. Kind of gave it some cool mid-range. So let's take a listen with that and with this one mixed. Cool. Sounds whack together right now. Let's keep adding. Definitely need some high end, so let's take a listen to what this is. So that alone could be a really cool electronic snare. It's got that nice crispy snap. It's got that nice punchy low end. All I really needed to do was, you know, add a little bit of a room sound to it. Just barely mixed in, and then since I just want this high end, we're going to cut that low end out. Let's take a listen. Cool. Add it back with that original snare, and I'm actually offlining these a little bit just so it's not all hitting at the same time, because if anything has it in the same frequency, it might phase out a little bit. And I like my snares typically a little bit looser than my kicks. I like my kicks nice, tight, and lined up. But my snares, especially when you've got something tonal like this, I love offsetting it just a little bit. Not even like 1/64 or 128th note, but just a little bit just to kind of help it pop. Next, we're going to add a good old trap clap in it. Gotta love it. Again, just adding some reverb to it for some body. Like the tail from it. Let's take a listen to everything now. Cool, nice and simple. And then last, we're going to add this nice little, let me go ahead and just solo this out. This is kind of a cool modern snare. I've used this one by itself multiple times in my mixes. It's got this really snappy quality to it that I really love. So I am just going to boost it again with an envelope shaper. As you can see, when you're doing this on like one single sample, then you can print this sample and use it. And this attack envelope acts kind of weird if you're using it on something that's got a bunch of hits in it. Like if you're using it on a whole drum stem, sometimes it gets finicky. That's why I like doing the sample by itself and then printing it out and then dragging that into something like Groove Agent or your timeline or whatever it may be. So let's take a listen to what it's doing for the attack. Again, adding just a little bit of reverb, like 7%. And then this was a really nice transient frequency right here. Let's take a listen. And then I didn't really want that, so I filtered that out. I like this for the tonal though, the tonal purposes. Just adding a little bit of high end. So now that we've got that all sorted, let's make sure we've got all these up. Cool, let's go ahead and hear all the snares. Sounds alright. Now we're just going to go on to our bus processing. Again, taking out the low end because I don't really want it in a snare. It's going to get all muddy with a kick. I'm going to boost this 200 just a little bit. Gives me a nice little pop. Scoop just a little bit of the mids out. Those are ugly. Cool. And then, again, compress it. Doing a good bit of gain reduction on this. Got it popping pretty hard. Just tightening it up just a little bit. SSL EQ. This came in really gold. This added a nice little, a nice low end bump, and then also a nice high crispiness, and kind of scooped out those mids a little. So take a listen to this. This sounds awesome. I'm gonna mute it and then I'll turn it on. Sounds awesome with them. And then again, I'm gonna do my send it to a limiter, which is probably so wrong, textbook. I don't know, because I'm just an average Joe that got pretty decent at producing. So like that's what I'm saying with my tutorials. Don't expect them to be like some Berkeley level knowledge. I'm just a kid who sits at his computer and works with sounds all day. So let's go ahead and check this out. Cool, we're doing like 20 dB of gain reduction. We're really popping, but as I said, if you've just got that transient on that snare, it's really not going to poke through a mix at all. It's going to sound super thin and super weak. So now these are done. Got from this. But what I like doing with this is, like, say you've got a verse or like a bridge or something that's a lot more mellow, and you can do like the... Use those single samples, kind of let them be thin, kind of let them be a little airier, and then when it comes to like the chorus or a drop or anything that's really, really dense musically, bring these in. Because since they have that same main underlying element, they're going to have the same tonal quality, so you're going to still have that. And so definitely try doing that. I mean, I love stacking samples. I've, gone in and stacked 10, 15 samples for one sample. I've done one or two and they sounded great too. It's all just playing with it. Just listen to a sample, see which part you like. Do you like the low end? Do you like the mids? Do you like the highs? Do you like the clickiness? Do you like the room sound? Kind of isolate that one quality that you like of that sample and then kind of combine it with another sample. You might need to tune them a little bit just to make sure they're in sync tune-wise. That way it's not getting, really, really gnarly. If there's a lot of low end, you might need to flip the phase of something. That way you're not phasing out. But definitely try filtering before you're doing any of the phasing and stuff like that, because the filtering will definitely help tighten everything up. Let's take a listen, actually, to what this snare would have sounded like had I just put them all together. Sounds okay. It sounds way tighter, though, like this. So, yeah. Go in, add some samples, definitely use our sample packs or any other samples you might have laying around. Let us know what you thought of this tutorial, though. Hopefully this one was useful for you guys. Like I said, I'm doing this in every single mix that I do. But that's going to be it for today. We'll be back next week with more tutorials. But anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Much love. Peace out.